Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to another Aussie Rules live show. I'm here and joined by a bit of a GameDay Squad legend, someone that you will definitely have seen on the leaderboards before if you've kept in. It is the Monk Man. Monko's Minions, the coach, mate. How are you going?
I'm really good, Tom. I'm excited for this round. We chatted a bit earlier, but there's no easy picks this week. I think you can make an argument for a whole heap of players, except, of course, for Patrick Lipinski. You can never make an argument for him, so he won't be in any of the teams.
Good Lipinski, mate. I'm keen to talk about this round. You're right, honestly. Having a look, it was a little difficult with some of the positions to get in there. But, mate, how have you found this season so far? Like, we've seen your name on the leaderboards. You're doing quite well. Yeah. What are you thinking?
The season has been unreal. I tell you what, I have loved the Cups. I was very nervous last week that I might have been knocked out in the GDS Cup after having what I thought was not a great round. Ben Keys kicked 2 goals, but just didn't get anywhere near enough of it. And that I was really worried was going to knock me out, but I somehow held on. So I'm through to the final 8 for that, and that's really been exciting.
How good is that?
But awesome. Yeah, it's been good, and it just seems to be going from, going better and better for the boys at GameDay Squad.
Yeah, well, 3rd in starter for the season, 2nd in classic. Please catch Cal. I can't keep listening to this guy.
I'm trying.
Talking about being at 1st. And then 2nd in champion. So everyone that's watching, if there is someone to listen to tonight, give my man the time. It's definitely not my rankings, that's for sure. But
please play Patrick Lipinski. He won't let you down. He's reliable. He just play him. That's my advice. Yeah.
Safe? He's a safe player.
He's a safe player.
Awesome. Well, alrighty, let's get into it. We're going to talk about and go through game by game some of the big ins and outs. And, of course, the first game tonight, we've got the Dockers and we've got the Pies. Big Lipinski. Monko saying, get him in. Can't not have him. But Hayden Young is an out for this one. And then a couple of outs on the Pies side. So you've got Maynard, DeGoey, and Big Pendles in the middle. So that'll be interesting to see who's sort of going to cover and, play a little bit more through the guts. In the next game, Philippou in. Yeah. He's a big name. Big name in the preseason. Everyone wanted to get a Philippou card. Are you going to be starting Philippou?
No, come on.
Do you have to give it a round?
You have to give it a week. You have to give it a week. But I did my little piece of paper that I've got sort of flashing here. I had a little asterisk next to that in as well because you're definitely right. He's going to be someone that's going to be playing, in your teams at some point during the year.
Yeah.
But you've got to have a bigger heart than me to be playing him, first game back.
Absolutely. And I'm totally with that. I've learnt my lesson too many times with rushing in injured players and even Treloar last round. Like, we know how good he was last year. They're going to manage him. I don't think they're going to play him the full game anyway. And
I think he's out this week too. So I think, he's being managed but he's also, might have retweaked something too because I don't think he's listed this week.
Yeah, he's well unders. You could tell just watching the game. He wasn't quite there. But next game, Demons and Hawthorn. Amon's back in. Oliver's back in on the Demons side, but nothing too much going else in that game.
You've got Viney. Viney was listed before as an out, which I thought was a big loss for, I'm going to say us because I'm a Melbourne fan, but I am expecting us to get walloped in that match. And, I think that we have had 3 soft games in a row, and I think we'll come down to earth big time against Hawthorn.
Yeah, I think it'll be competitive. I'm interested to see how it's going to go. But yeah, look, having Oliver back is definitely a good thing. I don't know how good overall, but yeah, we'll see. It's going to be spicy. And as Auntie Booger said here, Gorn v Meek, that's going to be a spicy matchup. I can't wait to watch that.
Yeah, I've put a lot of time into the rucks this week. It was probably the hardest line, I reckon, to think about. There were so many cases you could make for some rucks. And in a moment when we share our teams, I'll be sharing the challenger side I've got. And I've actually put Gorn in, but at a bronze level. So I'm bringing the rarities down for the rucks this week because I think there could be some interesting scoring.
Yeah, fair enough. And speaking of the GDS Cup before, that's the person who knocked me out in round 1. So you're enjoying the GDS Cup, I had a quick stint, as they would say. I was in and out. The next game, though, My boys, Swannies, taking on the Dons. And in terms of ins, we've got Caldwell and Shield into that midfield for the Dons. Ridley's out, though. And other than that, not too many other fantasy players you might consider.
Yeah, the Ridley out made me have a very quick look today at Redmond. His scores this year have been terrible, but this is just the sort of round where he could throw up a really, really weird score. And if he had 110, no one's going to have him, so it's not going to cost you anything. But if he had 110, you can sit there and go, yeah, I could sort of see how that could have happened.
Yeah.
But you can't put him in, obviously, based on that. The other one to watch in that game, and embarrassingly, I'll put my hand up here to say last year, my biggest GameDay Squad investment last year was a legendary Andy McGrath card. Now, the amount of dust that this card has been gathering digitally, Tom, it's like 16 metres of dust on it at the moment. And he keeps racking up 40s and 50s, but it wouldn't stun me either if he popped his little head up and showed us why all those years ago he was a number one draft pick, because he has been uber disappointing from both a game day position but also an Essendon position. So, keep your eyes on Redmond and McGrath to just make you feel a little bit sick on that day.
Well, round one, 123 points, but really hasn't got anywhere near the mark since then. And talking about cards that have collected dust, my version of that is in the next game, and it's Dan Rioli. My Dan Riolis that I invested into so heavily are still sitting on the pine, mate. They haven't made it quite onto the field yet. Another man from the Suns has made it on, though. John Noble. How good's he been?
Yeah, he's been unreal. I considered Noble. He was right up there for me this week, actually. But I've just left him out, citing unknown conditions at TIO up in Darwin. I think it's TIO. Whatever it is, it's going to be hot and humid. And John Noble strikes me as the sort of guy that needs to apply a lot of sunscreen. So, he's a pasty individual.
He might have a zinc shower before the game, mate.
Yes, and I'm thinking extra rotations just to get the SPF back up to... so I couldn't pick him, on skin cancer concerns.
Yeah, you know what? Very valid.
Yeah.
Very valid concerns indeed. But you are correct. Trelaw's out in this one. So I know a big name that a lot of coaches have been starting is Kennedy. Probably gives people that little bit of extra confidence. Although Trelaw didn't have too many CBAs last round, and I didn't see that sort of increasing with some injury. What a cracker that game will be. Next game, we've got the showdown, which might be the game of the round. This game always is amazing to watch, irrespective of where these teams sit on the ladder.
Yeah.
In terms of the big ins and outs, loads, who have we got? Not too many on the Port side, but a couple out. Sweet's out, which is interesting because their rucks are already Willie Rioli's out. We saw that throughout the week. And then Mitchell Hinge is in for the Crows and Brodie Smith out.
This for me, sometimes I like to identify a game where I think there'll be not soft possession, but I like to identify some games that I think there'll be a lot of high scoring characters in. Yeah. And often, to be honest, it's games at Marvel. I think the conditions there, especially given the ground's a little bit tighter, you can get more tackles, you can get a few more disposals for those guys that have got less distance to cover. And I know it's only marginal that we're talking about here, but over the course of a game, it adds up. But I've really identified that Adelaide game, the showdown, as being one that I can see a lot of players going really big. Neither team likes to tag. Dawson will do what Dawson does, which is slap it on the boot at 50% efficiency and lump it forward. Butters and Rosie, you can trust to get the job done. So I could see them going very big too. And obviously Horn Francis is in the forward line. He's still probably angry about what happened last week when he had to have Butters come in and calm him down. I mean, getting Butters to come in and try to calm you down, it's like having Ivan Milat in charge of peacekeeping in the Middle East. It's probably not going to work. So he'll be still on the angry pills, I think. And it's going to be a fantastic game. I can't wait to watch that match.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I can't wait. I had a look at some of the numbers in there. I've got a big player that I think is going to explode from it, just looking at some past showdowns. But we'll get into that in my rankings a little later. The next game, Richmond beat Eagles. This is sort of the dream matchup for a lot of fantasy coaches. We always sort of look towards these two squads, teams to play, I think, to sort of get started on your squad. So I'm interested to see how that's going to affect some teams. Are you going to go all in on some players here? You're going to fade?
Some people that I very much respect have said Toby's Nance Crevice needs to be number one, and I am going to fade him. I think, I think I'm just not sure that I trust him to be able to deliver. But if he went large, I would obviously not be completely surprised. And I just think that the rucks are very, very hard this week. But I won't be playing Toby. I will be playing someone else in the forward line, though, that we've spoken about. And we'll leave that to some reveals later as well, I think.
Lovely. Absolutely. Let's get into the next one then. Geelong Giants, Brian Myers in. That's a big in for them. Love to see that. And then on the GWS side, not too much else going there. And last game, before we get into some rankings, we have got Zach Fisher in. Not too much else, but that's also going to be a good game and one that I'm going to be targeting some players in. So speaking of targeting, without further ado, let's get into some rankings. Munko, feel free to hop in wherever you like here, but I'm just going to quickly talk through. But normally how I do this is I've got 3 locks there. I don't really talk too much on them. I just think they're too good at footy to sort of talk about. I sort of feel like most of them are matchup proof, although I can reason with why you would want to fade in and out some of these, but their ceiling's too high. Their floor's also just too high. So they're sort of where I start the squad building, and then everything else from there, I think, is all interpretation, at least for me.
I think you can have a lock on Sheasel. I think the low for him is too high. The high for him is uncapped. Down in Tasmania, they've got a weird game this week against the Lions in Tasmania. He's definitely in for me, and I think he'll be in for most squads. But Brisbane, after the Q clash last week, will travel down to Tasmania. It'll probably be freezing cold because it's Tasmania, and I could imagine that Sheasel will score very well, and that the Lions might get. They're not going to lose the game, but they might just get jumped there early. It'll be a good game to watch, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And starting it off there at number 4, as you just mentioned, Harry Sheasel. He's on the halfback again, and we saw last year in 2024 how good he is in that sort of role. And the second he went back to it, his numbers just had a massive, massive uptick. So even though we have the likes of Daniels and a lot of other ball winners there, I just think him on the halfback has really elevated him. He was sort of sitting around the 7 rank mark earlier this year for me, Munko, but now he's jumped straight up to 4, and I can honestly reason in maybe a week or two, he might have another lock on him as well.
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah, no, I agree.
For sure. Let's go. James Sicily. This is a name that I think people have been a little hesitant to start, in all honesty, for this year, and for good reason. But I'm just really looking at his matchup this round. He's coming off one of his best performances for the season so far, and now he's coming up against your boys and the Demons. And, you know, you guys have been known to leak some points there, especially to defenders. And I just see his intercept marking ability and just general play being really damaging against your Ds. And, I think he's going to have a really good day in the office. So he's number 5 for me.
I have been one of those that's been sceptical to start him, but I'm more sceptical this week, actually, with Tom Barrass listed as an out. I think that is correct. I only checked it recently, but if Barrass is out, I'm curious as to whether Sicily plays a little bit more lockdowny. But having said that, there's not really anyone to lock down. You know, there's not a Charlie Curnow or something that's going to really need a tight one-on-one matchup. You know, Tom McDonald's obviously not going to kick a bag, so I'm sort of not sure. I'm sort of not sure what's going to happen there. But I've left him out just because I'm a bit curious about how it looks without Barrass.
Yeah, and fair enough. And look, Amon comes back in, so some of those kick-ins that we normally see are probably going to go straight back to him from last week. So can definitely reason with that. John Noble, big name I'm in this round. Look, I think the Suns are going to play really well. They like playing in the heat. You mentioned before some concerns and some very valid concerns. But look, his numbers this year have been absurd. And even in matchups where I thought it wasn't going to be as positive, like against the Swans, he still pulled out 126 fantasy points. Over his past 4 games, he hasn't not hit the ton. And his lowest was last round with 103. So look, he's averaging about 21 kicks. It's looking like 20 kicks for this season. Just unders. So, yeah, he's been a big in for me and a big surprise considering I thought their big signing in Dan Rioli was maybe going to come into that role, but lo and behold, John Nodal said, "Hold my beer, let me take the kick-ins and let me run amok."
Just having a look now, you're spot on. 142, 96, 126, 138, 133, 103. So there's some, some really, really big scores there, and he sounds like someone perhaps I need to reconsider actually.
Yeah, well, look, Flanders sort of came out of that role. Rioli's not playing that role. We all wondered who it was going to be, and somehow it's John Nodal, the sneaky pickup and one of the better ones in the off season. So yeah, a little confusing for me as well.
Just make sure you drop him just before the finals. That's really good for his morale. So just see whether that can happen this year. He can get to
I heard
round
he loves
20.
that.
Say that again.
I heard he loves that actually.
Yeah, he loves that. It's his favourite thing. Play 23 games for a club and then get dropped before the finals. Bad luck, John.
And then my last one here is going to be Bailey Dale. Bit interesting. His season has been a roller coaster because every second round it seems like he plays well, and then this is an off week. If history is going to tell, he went 122 last week. The round before 85, 136, 85. You sort of get it. He either plays
it's like
really good.
You're doing the multiple choice answers on like a maths test, and you get two letter C's in a row, and you're like, well, the next one has to be not C, but it's actually is C. You're right. Bailey Dale's the off week, on week, and it's like sometimes he's just going to have 2 on weeks in a row. So no argument.
Well, I'm banking on it.
no argument from me with Bailey Dale, and he kicks it a lot. So you're in the business there.
Yeah, and look, it's just his role. It's so good, and I think having some reinforcements back in the middle with Kennedy, Bont, Chalor's out, of course, but just that middle, Gallagher's in again, I think. So it's really going to do him wonders because a lot of attention comes away from Dale and goes more towards that gun midfield that the Bulldogs have. So he gets really good kick numbers. He's going to be doing the kick-ins as well, so loving his role. But some people that I found really hard to drop but had to make the decision is my last 3 in Holmes, Sinclair, and Ash. Ash is one of the better pods that you can play, I think, period, at the moment. He's just having a stellar season. And sneakily, I think we all look at Whitfield, but my goodness, does he know how to score some numbers and put them up really quick as well. Sinclair, it's just a matchup thing for me. In most rounds, I'm getting him in, but he's playing more that midfield role, and Carlton are very good at neutralising midfielders. So at most other rounds, he's in my top 7 this week in particular. Just going to fade him. And Maxi Holmes, Munkos, we'll have a quick conversation about him, but I have some concerns that he's not 100%. It looks like he's running on one leg at the moment.
Yeah, he's in my never again, and I'll tell you why. A couple of weeks ago, I came 4th. I in champion. I missed out by 5 points.
Oh, no.
And my last 2 players to play that round were Max Holmes and were Carl Amon. Amon got concussed and didn't get a kick in the last quarter. And Holmes was running around, and in the last quarter, Cripps came into Holmes, and Holmes tackled him front on, and Cripps just swatted him away. And here I am shouting at the TV, "It's a free kick! It's holding the ball! It's plus like 9 points!" And the 9 points would have won me the 1,000. He's just someone that I just can't trust at the moment. I'm still furious, but the talent's there. But I agree with you. He's just not looking like he used to. And I actually read something today that said that last week he attended less centre bounces than previous weeks. He had a drop in the centre bounce attendances. So they might even be looking at doing something different with him to get his confidence back up.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's just trending in the wrong direction. And for now, I think it's just a watch. And I just need to see him playing to that level he was playing. In the first 5 rounds, he looked unstoppable. He was really playing some really good footy and was a tag target in most rounds as well because of it. And now, not playing as hot. But I think that wraps up our defenders quite well. Let's get into the midfielders. I've got 2 locks. I've got Merritt. I've got Dacos. They're just playing too good. And I personally can't fade them in any round. They're just my boys. Dawson. Sitting there, had a look at some numbers, and he loves to play against Port, and he loves the showdown. The captain is going to step up, so he's securely taking number 3 for me. But Tommy Green enters into my top 6 this round, and I actually have him at number 4. I think this round against Geelong, they play a very attacking style of football, and he's also just going to eat that up. Like we were speaking about the midfield there, I think he's going to kill it this round.
There's something not quite right with the goal with Greater Western Sydney. I had them after 4 rounds as my premiership favourites. I was very, very bullish on where they were at.
Yep.
And they've really thrown up some mixed bag results against some sides that I was expecting them to beat. And last week when they beat, when Sydney knocked them off, I think it was the Swans last week that knocked them off.
Yeah, it was, baby.
That was a surprise for me. And I'm nervous about GWS. So he's not in for me, but I can definitely see the appeal. But yeah, something smells not quite right. And if there's one place that you're not getting off the leash, it's Cardinia Park. You know, Chris Scott is the best coach in the competition, in my opinion. He gets an unbelievable results out of that list week in, week out. And the idea that he just runs around and has 40 touches for me is just a non-starter. So I've faded him, but I think he's a sensational player, and I will definitely pick him in weeks to come.
Yeah, and fair enough. Look, I just think this midfield, that I don't know how much attention is going to go into anyone. I think they sort of, as you mentioned, they back in sort of their structure. And look, hopefully Tommy Green comes loose, but it's his stuff around the ground that's really going to take him into having a good game, because he doesn't get those 20 kicks, those 25 kicks that we see from other superstars, maybe like Dawson or Dacos. So he's really going to rely on his tackling and some of the other things that
goal
he does.
Kicking too, yeah.
Hopefully so. Had one against the Swannies, and quite a fantastic goal. Luckily didn't cost us in the end. But my next one, number 5, maybe should have him a little higher. Zachy Butters. He has been the highest disposal getter over the past 2 showdowns and is averaging them at 34 disposals per game. If someone loves a showdown, Zach Butters might be the number 1 candidate, and you know he's going to get in amongst it. And we spoke about sort of not a role change, but a midfield change with Rosie going to the halfback. It just opens that door that little bit more for Zach Butters to come in and dominate. So I'm really big on him this round. I think he's going to get his hands on the footy a lot. He's going to have a fantastic game, and Zachy Butters is a go for me.
Yep, he was the second name on my team sheet. I completely agree.
Last one there. So number 6, it's going to make the squad, is Josh Dunkley. He's just safe. He's just so safe. Such a great play. His ceiling, he does have a ceiling, but his floor is just unbelievable. Even last round where I thought he didn't have too good of a matchup, 125 fantasy points for dunks. And he didn't seem to really dominate, but he just ticks over the points every quarter. He just does a bit of everything. He's a really good contested marker as well, so he can get points on some dump kicks, which was frustrating to watch. I actually lost to Cow last round, Munko, by a point something of a point. It was a decimal point. Yeah, like 2,758, but he was on top of me. So he's clearly knocked me off somewhere, and Dunkley was his last play to play.
And you're sure it's not just sorting by alphabetical order? There are actually decimal points in this leaderboard. Is that right?
I should look into it, because I need anything I can get to try to get that win.
Yeah, so I just blame alphabetical order whenever it happens to me, so don't worry.
Exactly right. But look, some hard names to fade is Rosie, Hewitt, Bont, and McCluggage. McCluggage is, I think, it's a sneaky, really good pod. In the last game against North. He knows how to win it against them and has played extremely well in that matchup.
Can't argue with any of them. I've got a little special selection that's outside those top 10 that will be playing across my sides this week, which we'll get to shortly. But I really like the way you've set that up. You make an argument for so many players. It's just obviously how they perform on the day, isn't it?
Yeah, well, if you look, Hewitt's was one that I've started for the past 4 rounds and haven't got him in, but I don't know if I'm just like overreacting to one bad game or if I have concern. But I just think some of the upside of others maybe gives me a little more confidence in giving that the start over Hewitt. But man, he can find it. And if he has a good round, I will shoot myself in the foot for not getting him in. Alrighty, let's get into some rucks. And you spoke about it at the start of the show. I actually really struggled making this. This is one of the hardest sets of rankings to go with, and I'm a believer in you. I'm actually fading Nankervis. I think a lot of people are going to rush towards Nankervis thinking he will be the top scoring ruck. I don't believe he will be. He has had some good rounds where we've seen a really good ceiling, but I just think overall, when you're not going to get the return that you want from Nankervis, and I'm hoping on it, because if everyone starts in, and like yourself, Munko, and if we don't, then that's going to be a big advantage that we have heading into the round already.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's the one where people do filter by, points against, West Coast Eagles at the top of the list, and they go bang.
Easy.
And it's like, I'm not quite sure about that either. And also, if we can see it as fantasy players, you can also imagine that opposition coaches can see it too. So they might try to put some work into how they actually go about fixing that. And that might be something that, he ends up having a score that's probably not quite so good. You've got Darcy Cameron at 4, and I really, really like him tonight against Fremantle. I know I have a don't ruin your entire weekend by selecting Thursday night players policy, but
I have this as well.
Yes, but I'm going against that policy tonight. So by about 10 o'clock this evening, we'll know how we're faring. But I think Cameron goes very, very big tonight, and he's someone that's proven himself against Fremantle before. He has an average of 123.5, and last year against Fremantle, he had a game day score of 133 when he was rucking against Jackson and Darcy. Now, he's rucking against Jackson and Darcy, obviously, again tonight. And both of them are not playing as well as they were last year. So I'm very bullish on him.
For sure. He actually was a ruck that I had in and just subbed him out for Cherry at number 2. I hear your points, and that's the thing. He has a good track record against it. I'm just a little Thursday nights, man. I overthink the hell out of every start on Thursdays, truly. And I feel like when I already have like Dacos in the game, I'm already thinking that's enough. I'm like, gosh, if he doesn't hit, I'm gonna freak. So
no, I agree. My Thursday night overthinking had me eligible for about 15 hours on the NDIS, mate. So I completely understand about the overthink on Thursday night. It's a real problem.
For sure. But yeah, I think Gawn just formed. Like, just can't look at how he's playing and just not get him in. I think he's coming back to being his best version of himself and nearly matchup proof in any given round. Cherry, he looks like he's back. He's fit. I had a little concerns with him later on prior, a couple of rounds ago, whether he was 100%. But the past 3 rounds since my concerns are 122, 141, 139. He looks like he's ready to go and back to his best self. And then not on my list is Tim English. I think he's got a really, really rough matchup this round. And Rowan Marshall was almost someone that I wasn't going to put in. I was going to look elsewhere, but I would avoid the 2 big names in Marshall and English this round in particular, with English having the Suns, who are the best at limiting ruck points in terms of fantasy for the year so far. And then Marshall, not in good form and going up against TDK. So that's going to be a pretty tough matchup. And I don't see anyone really exploding out of those 2 rucks.
Yes, and I think this was the hardest line this week, and that's why I've downgraded to gold and bronze in my champion, and across to their lower rarities this week, when usually your Gawn and Cherries you're putting in as high as you can, basically.
Yeah, 100%. Mate, let's get into the forwards. 2 locks, Smith, McRae, playing midfield. Don't need to talk too much about them. Their upside's too much. Floor is too high.
That's a very sexy prize card, by the way. Excellent selection, because that would have been a gamble going the Smith prize card, and you have ripped its face off there.
Yes, well, I, for a very long time, was crying crocodile tears about not having my boy Errol Goulden.
Yeah.
I passed on Errol Goulden, and I had a bad feeling that I may regret that. And then the ACL, and then I was in a bad place for a while and thought, will I ever get this card on the field? But my goodness, he's come back, and he's come back with a vengeance for me. So thank you, Bailey Smith. Thank you. What is he averaging? 137. So thank you. It's exactly what we needed. But still can't get a win. So, gosh, if he can't get me a win, I'm in some trouble, Munko. Let's talk about the other players, though. Rankin, Horne-Francis, both in the showdown. Rankin has kicked a goal in the past 2 showdowns, and now he's playing in the midfield. So I think the upside is there. He's getting time in that midfield to get disposals, and he will also, I see him being damaging in front of goals again, and that's sort of exactly what you want. You want touches for your players in the forward line, and then you also want them to be damaging in front of the stick. So if he can put those 2 together, he's in for a good round, and he's just a pretty safe play for the season overall.
His speed has blown me away. I know when you're in the forward line, you probably don't get noticed as much for perhaps you don't get noticed as much for your speed, but when he's playing in the centre midfield and you see him get the ball, he's just smashing the bloody turbos, on the PlayStation controller, and he's off. And you think to yourself, where I haven't seen this before, but he's been absolutely fantastic this season. And Your top 7 there are the identical top 7 to me. So we are on a unity ticket with our forwards this week.
How good's that?
Yeah,
that gives me some. I'm doing something right. This is good. This is good.
Yeah.
Something right, at least. Look, and I agree, mate. He's got the nitros or whatever you call it. He hits that 7th gear that no one else has, and he's gone. And so, unbelievable. Horn Francis is playing better without Rosie being in the middle. So just get him in, upside there. Big game player. Expect a lot from him.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Kennedy has been the bright star for me this year. I've been a little lost with who to pick in my forward line, and my 7 to 10, I really could take the pick. I'm really like a lot of them, but Kennedy has played so unbelievably well, and Chalor not being in should give you even more confidence. He's coming off 127, 130, 125 of a 3-round average or 3-round performance there. So he's on fire. He's gone to another level. Who would have thought that someone that couldn't crack any midfield time just a year ago is now playing in one of the better midfields in the comp and has such an amazing role there.
Yeah, I think we need a little bit of an intervention though with 200 centimetre Peter. I'm not sure about that selection in 10 there. There'd be a wall of players I would probably prefer over him. But geez, it's exciting to watch when he gets the kicking outside 50 going. He's just shelling them through the sticks. But
yes.
I mean, I don't like the role of the big tall forward. Give me someone that's getting the cheap possessions out the back. Little helmeted Caleb Daniels are someone I much prefer the role of. So I'd question your thinking on Peter Wright, but the rest of them.
This could be some emotional hedging for me though, because I just can't see who's going to defend him.
Yeah, right.
Blakey's not going to have a good day on him.
Yeah.
McCartan's just is good player, but if you're going one-on-one, I don't see that being too good. So I think if they use him right, he could kick a bag.
Well, you just have to rely on him dropping marks, and that's usually a pretty solid thing that he can do as well. So he might just end up outscoring himself by fumbling. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about the impact of Peter Wright against the Swans. I think he'll be safe.
Hopefully so, mate. But look, I reckon sneaky bit of a pod, but I agree. Look, had him at 10th, and Caleb Daniel and Simpkin was really the hard one for me. But I'm going Simpkin because it's against last game of the round against the Lions. I see him just stepping up in the middle. I think the Lions get on top, but there's going to be plenty of stoppage. There's going to be plenty of ball in that middle, and I feel like he'll get the best chance to score there. And, Fisher's back. They got a lot of numbers back as well for North. So will Caleb Daniel get as many touches? I'm not sure. Slight edge, but my edge is going to Simpkin. And you said you agree.
No, I do. I think the Fisher in can potentially impact Daniel's role. And whenever I'm unsure about this, I come back to the role. So you're getting so many cheap points with the kick-ins and that sort of uncontested halfback sort of staff that you've got obviously in Marich, and I've selected him this week as well. So as soon as that comes under threat, it's time to look elsewhere. And I had the top 7 the same. I've got Simpkin in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One that's going to hurt me not starting is number 9, Baker. He is such a good matchup. I'm just a little concerned about his role and how many points he'll score and sort of the ceiling that we can get there. So, yeah, he's got Richmond. I'm not sure how well he's going to play. It was really tough to sort of fade him because earlier this year he was in and around the mark for me. But I'm just looking at some recent form with him, and I just really can't start him with much confidence. But there is another Eagle that I will be starting, and we had a little chat before about him on the show, and it's Ryan Marich. This guy knows how to get his hands on the footy, and there could be plenty of it down back for him. So, of course, he's playing down in defence. He's doing the kicking duties for West Coast at the moment. Yep. And when he's doing that, he's seen a massive uptick in performance. He had 129 fantasy points last round with 20 kicks. Now, I don't see that happening again because there was a lot of behinds kicked in that game. Hence, there was a lot of opportunity to play. And I think he had 10 of his kicks came from kick-ins alone. So maybe that's a little concerning for some, but I still think as a play and an upside that he has with Richmond, who leak points to defenders for the season so far, Marich is a start this round for me. So he's kicking potential.
Agree completely. And I think the GDS 10% commission this week. I mean, I reckon 90% of the funds this week from the GDS commission would have been marriage sales, because you couldn't find him anywhere. I couldn't get my hands on a bronze of him today. I think the diamonds that are up there are limited too. So people are thinking the same way, which is a good sign. I think he's going to have a really big score against the Tigers as well.
I totally agree. It is normally a good sign when others are thinking the same way. But although, I've infamously been called out for starting a bit of a Cozzy Pickett riot a couple of rounds ago, and that's sort of aged not too well. So we'll see. Don't believe everything you see in the transfer market, because maybe. Yeah.
Definitely fade players that are looking to leave clubs. That's probably a rule too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, mate, let's get your squad up. I think we're going to see your Challenger squad, if we're not mistaken.
We are. We're looking at the Challenger squad today, and I've got, as I said to you before, we're going to know very, very quickly whether it's going to be a happy Minions or whether it's going to be a sad Minions for this week. Luke Ryan and Jordan Clark are the two across the back line that are going to cause some heart palpitations across the community. My thinking between both of them is that after the embarrassment that Freo were last week, they are going to want to bounce back. But part of them bouncing back is, a lot was said about the midfield unit in Sarong and Brayshaw last week, but the way they actually care for the ball and the way they actually look after the footy is going to change against Collingwood tonight, I think.
Yep.
And that's going to mean a lot more chip mark across the back line. And there's no two better in the comp, I reckon, as that 1-2 team to do that across the back line than Ryan and Clark. So they're my highest risk picks across the back line, but they're also two that I think are going to be excellent points of difference if they come off. Now, when I was doing a little bit of research for this, I had a look at Luke Ryan, and he's had 115 in round 6, 119 in round 7, 119 in round 8. And the last time he played Collingwood, how many GameDay Squad points do you reckon he had?
Who was this, sorry?
Luke Ryan. How many GameDay Squad points do you reckon he had the last time they played Collingwood?
He had one of those silly games, I bet you, like 162.
He had 173. And in that game, and it was in Perth as well, in that game, Clark had 154. So both of them know how to rack it up, obviously, and Collingwood seems to be an opponent that they don't mind racking it up against. So I'm very bullish on both of their chances. Then in the midfield, the one that will, the rest of it sort of speaks to itself. I've just got a little asterisk next to the human cockroach, Dane Zorko. Keeps on keeping on. And I want to really put an asterisk next to him when Kitty Coleman comes back. Now, Coleman...
Good call.
Kitty Coleman went in the VFL last week, and he had 27 possessions last week in the VFL. And when he comes back into the AFL, I reckon Dane Zorko's output could change. So I'm very, 100%. Very curious to see what happens with Zorko, because when Coleman comes in, I'll be taking Zorko out, and you'll only get maybe 2 weeks where it'll either work for you and you'll have an edge on everyone in the competition, or you'll be eating humble pie because Zorko will continue to human cockroach it up. So that's a little asterisk I've got there. Then in the midfield, Tim Taranto. Now, no one's ever picked Tim Taranto this season, but I'm telling you, he's going to go full.
He could go nuts.
He's going to be in his underwear against the West Coast Eagles in the midfield. So I'm really excited for him. And when you look at how he's played, he's actually put up some really, really big numbers this season. He's had a 138, 123, 110, 120. He's kicking some goals. He's still handballing a little bit more than we'd like, but I'm really confident he's going to have a massive game. And given that he's an all-star card for me, I can't get over the salary cap bonus that I get for playing him.
Yep.
The next line has talked about the rucks. So I've gone down the rarities in the rucks. Cameron and Gawn. Everyone will have, not everyone, but I think a large percentage of people play Gawn. I think he might disappoint. So I'm going to have him just as a bronze. I think Hawthorn will target him physically. So I expect him to get roughhoused a little bit. That's definitely been a key to keeping his scores down previously. And I know Hawthorn are interested in the dark arts of the AFL world. So I expect him to get them to get physical with him. Cameron I really like. And then the forward line. McRae Diamond is something that I was really happy to invest in this year. He's been trotting out in that forward line because his ceiling is just so ridiculous. And against the Blues, he should score a ton of points. So I'm wrapped with him. And then the rest of the forward line speaks for itself. They're the same 7 that you had. The 2 prize cards, Nick Dacos and Connor Rozee, play every week in, week out. I've got to try to drag myself up the leaderboard in Challenger, which has been a little bit disappointing. And the only one that might come out, I don't think he will, but the only one that might come out of that list would be Bontempelli. I don't want to get myself bevoed. And if they're winning up there comfortably and he subs him after 3 quarters or it's hot or someone, I'm worried I'm going to get bevoed in that match because it's just such a strange place for them to play. So I'm nervous about Bont, but I don't actually think I'll have the guts to move him on because he's just such a quality player. So that's where I land. With a couple of big watches tonight on Ryan and Clark. I really, really hope that they can return to some big scores.
And Cameron invested the salary cap in terms of rucks at least into Cameron. Gone the Bronzy, potentially getting some work.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm very confident they're going to target him physically. I think that's what they'll do. Yeah. But you can't argue with his form, but just don't invest all your salary cap there. In my opinion, this week, I think the rucks are very, very hard.
Yeah, mate. What a squad it is. The Challenger squad, as you said, you're actually not in the top. That's the only one you're not in the top 3 at the moment. But this is the one you're trying to make some money moves in and start to line up that leaderboard. Yeah,
and I've dialed the risk up a little bit there. Like the top 10 get the prize cards. That's what we're aiming for. I've got to get into that top 10, mate. So the risk is dialed up, and that's where you see some Jordan Clark, Luke Ryan, Tim Taranto selections come in. We've got to just try to catch up a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I'll quickly show my squad. This is my classic squad for the round. You can see just sort of how I'm distributing the salary cap. But Sheasel, I mentioned his role. I think he's going to play really well. I'm trying to just put salary cap on players who I think could explode, just to sort of help out maybe some worse picks that I make and, make up some ground in terms of points. And then, of course, led by my boy.
Look at those numbers. That is just some big numbers there. Mate. My goodness.
I don't know. I haven't had the greatest season, but I don't know where I would be without Bailey Smith price card. So if things turn around, it's definitely on the back of him. And then Marich as well, debuting for the squad this round. Keen to get him in.
Good luck. I'm curious where, obviously Sheasel and Whitfield, you've got some salary cap in, but that Bailey Dale, if you're bullish on him, he could be someone that could really pick it up too. And Noble too, I could see probably some salary cap potentially going into him. I quite like those defenders that kick it a lot. You can definitely get some really big turnarounds when some midfielders go a bit quieter. So I love it. Great classic side, man.
Let's hope so. I need to get on top of Cal. There's a bit of corruption going on because, I did beat him earlier this year, but then he canned the whole round. He got rid of it. It was round 0.
Yeah. Well,
I smashed him.
Cal and I... This is a little word from our sponsors. The best peanut butter on the market is this one here. And we were discussing previously that we think that Cal might be a smooth peanut butter guy. And that's unacceptable in this day and age. It's crunchy or bust. So I think we actually need to have some sort of side wager. I'll ship him up some peanut butter or he can send some crunchy down to us. But there needs to be a side wager on how he is going to score this week because I'm on Team Tom. I want to see you get over the top of him.
Let's go. Yeah, look, let's hope so. I reckon we do it. We put a smooth or crunchy peanut butter jar on the line each year. Of course, I would like crunchy myself because I'm not one of those. Cal is definitely one.
Yeah,
one of those,
he is definitely one. I can't wait to hear what he answers to this because I would be gambling heavily that he would be into the smooth.
Oh, yes. Mate, I feel like I've had this conversation with him on a night out and just absolutely ripped in. Yeah, it's 2025, mate. Grow up.
Exactly right. Have a bit of texture.
Well, mate, thank you so much for hopping on the show, taking the time out of your night to talk through some fantasy footy with us and then show off your squad. And a great squad it was.
Thank you. Let's not ruin the Thursday night. Let's have a competitive Fremantle. Let's have some chipping across the back line. Let's get it done.
Mate, it's going to be a good game. I agree with what you said before in terms of they need this so unbelievably much, but they are running into one of the hottest teams in the competition in the Pies. So if they can get it done, they get this season back on track. But a loss here could really put some Freo fans and the fantasy world into a dark place with where they're at for the year.
Thank you very much for having me on, man.
Mate, the pleasure is mine. Thank you again. And for all your legends that kept along, good luck for your round in round 9 here. And we'll see you all next week on